Thanks very much for joining me for another edition of 15 Minutes with Father Greg. I first have to apologize. I've missed the past couple of weeks. The truth is I was just pretty sick. Caught a really bad stomach bug. It was not COVID, thanks be to God. In fact, over the course of about 10 days or so, I was tested a number of times. So glad to report it was not COVID, just again, a bad stomach bug. So want to thank very much Father Vitus, our resident priest, Deacon Frank, Deacon John, and the entire team here at St. Gerard's for covering me so I could rest and recoup. So it's great to be back with you. I'll tell you, being down for about 10 days or so, first of all, it stinks because you want to be doing stuff and it just stinks to feel crummy. We've all had that experience before of being sick. And so getting back into the office, getting back to Sunday Masses and everything else in the regular routine just reminds you so much of the joy that comes from being a parish priest. So it's rejuvenated me in some way. So I'm really grateful, and thanks so much for your prayers and understanding. And again, sorry I've missed the past couple of weeks. But I want to plunge right into a really important topic because it's coming up just in a few days. Of course, we will be beginning the season of Lent. It begins, of course, on Ash Wednesday. And then we start this entire journey towards Easter. Now, it's important for us to remember why we have this preparatory season. I've said it before that the Church in her wisdom over the centuries has learned that these really important days like Easter and Christmas, we don't just jump into them. That's often what happens in the secular world. So right now you might already see not only certainly candies and stuff for Valentine's Day this weekend, but you already see candy and other decorations and stuff for Easter. And we're not even there yet. It's not quite spring. We haven't even started our Lenten journey, but nevertheless you start to see already a lot of these decorations for Easter. But again, the Church in her wisdom says, no, there needs to be a period of preparation. You don't just jump into these feast days. So just as we have Advent before Christmas, so too now we enter another penitential and preparatory season called Lent. Now, Lent comes from an Old English word which means spring or springtime. But in other languages, Lent is much more closely associated with the number 40. Because, of course, this is a 40-day journey. The number 40 is a really important number throughout the Bible. It's rather a symbolic number. And we see the number 40 several times. Two of those times are really significant. We know the story of the Exodus, the freedom of the people in captivity, the people of Israel, enslaved in Egypt, and how God comes and sends the angel of death as the final sign to the Pharaoh and to all the Egyptians to allow the Jewish people to be freed. In that moment, we know the story well that the angel of death would pass over the houses where the Jews were gathered, having been instructed by Moses to prepare their homes with blood from a lamb over the lintel, the doorpost, the frame, if you will, of the houses where they were. And as the angel would pass over those homes, the people would be kept safe. And then eventually, at the order of Pharaoh, completely frustrated, he allowed the people to leave. And so now they begin their Passover journey, that is, from slavery into freedom. But we know it's not just simple of leaving and entering the promised land. No, there was a rather great ordeal. They reached the edge of the Red Sea, and we recall how God instructs Moses to strike the water with his staff, and then the water parts, and the Israelites pass through dry shod. The Egyptians follow behind, but they are consumed by the waves. Thus, God saved his people. But even then, it wasn't easy. They would continue to go through the desert. The journey shouldn't have taken them very long, but it ended up taking them 40 years to reach the promised land. Why? Because of the hardness of their heart. The story of the Exodus, the story of the people of Israel reaching the promised land, is really one of those 10 steps forward, 8 steps backwards sort of things. They saw God's providence. They saw his love and his care for them. And yet so often their hearts would be hardened. They would grumble against God, grumble against Moses. And so God would allow them to simply stop and to have to learn. One of my professors, when I was studying theology at Fordham University, put it so eloquently. She said, the Exodus story is the story of the people of Israel learning the lifestyle of being God's people. Learning the lifestyle. What she meant by that was, if we say that we believe in God, if we say that we trust Him, that's not just theory, it's not just abstract. It means we have to learn to trust Him with our whole lives. Day by day, in the ups and the downs, in the successes and in the setbacks. Seeing that God somehow, some way, will make a way. That's what the people of Israel had to learn. It's what you and I also have to learn. Another time where 40 days is really important is with Jesus Himself. Before He begins His public ministry, we know how He goes out into the desert. And so on the first Sunday of Lent, we always hear the story of Jesus in the desert. He goes there and He does spiritual battle with evil. He hears the tempter, Satan, trying to dissuade Him from the mission of God that is set before Him. That 40 days of preparation by Jesus is the model for us for the 40 days that will commence next week. Of course, we begin our Lenten journey with Ash Wednesday. And this year also, you'll notice there's a bit of a difference in the way we will be distributing ashes. The Holy See, that is the Vatican, and then national conferences of bishops throughout the world have given instructions to us pastors about the best way to administer ashes in this new reality of the pandemic. For us as Americans, it's going to look very different. But in fact, what we'll be doing is matching really much of the rest of the world in the way they distribute ashes. In America and in other cultures, we're used to having the ashes marked on our foreheads in the sign of a cross. It's kind of an outward sign to people. It's kind of cool, in fact, to see so many people on that Wednesday walking around in stores and in different places with the ashes on their forehead. But much of the world does it differently, in fact, much more discreetly, and also a bit truer to the biblical notion of putting on sackcloth and ashes. The priest or deacon or minister in our parishes will just be sprinkling some of the ashes on the top, on the crown of our heads. Likely as not, we really won't see them, because it's really meant to be an inward sign, a personal sign of our repentance, of our choosing to take up our cross more faithfully and follow Christ. So the way we will have ashes distributed might be different, but the sign remains the same. It's a sign of our weakness, of our human condition, our frailty, and our need for Christ. And then we'll have the three great hallmarks of the Lenten journey: fasting, prayer, and almsgiving. So first, we fast. We put aside those little delights in life, whatever they might be for us, a glass of wine, candy, snacking between meals, whatever it might be. And it should hurt a little bit, that's the idea, because fasting reminds us that there is nothing, absolutely nothing, that will ever satisfy the deepest longing of our hearts. Only God can do that. We'll also take some time, hopefully, for extra prayer, that time of heart-to-heart conversation with God. It's important for us to carve out that time each day, and Lent is a good time for us to be more deliberate about doing so. Maybe we have a little devotional book. Maybe it's getting back to the rosary each day, or just carving out 5 minutes or so to read the gospel of each day. There are so many apps out there, so many great resources. I hope you investigate and find one or two that might work for you to help improve and increase your prayer life. And then we have almsgiving. I like to think of it as charity. Yes, charity with our wallets, giving to those organizations that help others and often need some help themselves. Maybe it's giving to a food bank, or finding some other way of serving, of getting outside our own comfort zones and helping those who are in need. So again, fasting, prayer, and almsgiving, the hallmarks of our Lenten journey. Also want to draw your attention to those who will be preparing to be baptized and received into the church at the end of the great Lenten journey at the Easter Vigil. In our parish here at St. Gerard's, we have 5 or 6 people who are preparing for the sacraments. And in parishes throughout the country and throughout the world, so many are also preparing. It's a moment for us who are baptized and fully initiated members to be reminded of our identity as disciples of Christ. So it's good for us to learn from their example as they deepen their faith and prepare for the outpouring of the Spirit in baptism, confirmation, and of course in Holy Communion. So keep them in prayer and allow their example to inspire you. Finally, many parishes often do something special for Lent. One of the prayer experiences we'll have here are the Stations of the Cross each Friday evening in Lent at 7 p.m. And whichever parish you attend, I'm sure they'll be doing something similar. But we're also going to be having a Lenten Mission. This is a chance for us as a parish family to journey deeper in our faith. And of course, because of the pandemic, we're doing things a little bit more differently than usual. So we'll actually be using Formed, that great resource I've mentioned many times before. Formed is like Catholic Netflix. It's an online streaming service with thousands of videos, study series, entire books and workshops that you can download on a variety, virtually every topic in our Catholic faith. There's one really great program called The Search. Because you know what? We're all searching for something. We're all searching for fulfillment, for joy, for happiness, for peace in our lives, in our families, indeed in the whole world. So we're going to be joining together on this pilgrimage of asking those big questions. What are we searching for? What is it we're longing for? And how might we succeed in finding that? So there are a couple of ways we can do this. One is at home, perhaps as a family. We'll be sending out the resource, and you can find it very easily on the Formed website. It's just taking a little bit of time each week to watch a short video clip, and then there are some questions there to help facilitate both personal reflection and also some group sharing. Because it's important for us to share our own experience, because it bolsters other people, and we can be encouraged by their story about their faith journey. For those of us here at St. Gerard's, we'll also have an opportunity to gather together in person, if you're comfortable doing so, right here in our parish hall. We'll have those gatherings on Monday afternoons at 2 p.m. and on Wednesday evenings at 7 p.m. Our hope is that those with different schedules might find one that will work for them. So again, you have the opportunity to do this either at home or in person, depending on what your schedule is like, and of course, given all of the regulations that we have right now, of course, safety is our number one concern. So there's a lot that's going to be starting next week. We'll be commencing our Lenten journey with the marking of ashes and beginning that great season of spiritual renewal and preparation through prayer, fasting, and greater charity. Thanks so much for joining me. As always, please feel free to submit any questions that you have. You can do so by following the links below to a Google Doc. I love getting your questions, and I do hope to get to them soon. So as we prepare for the season of Lent, take some time to think about what will you do to make this Lent special, significant? What will you do to draw closer to Christ? Because by his glorious cross and resurrection, we have been set free. Thanks so much. God bless you and your family.